Man, oh man, what a difference a week makes. Last week was a doozy. I think every day kind of felt like one one nard kick after another. But this week, I'm floating 3 feet off the ground. You know that feeling you get when you're fully loved and supported. I have talked to so many smart people, so many of my colleagues in extension in the region, that professional love and support. Ooh, I'm buzzing. I'm glowing with it. I had a terrific talk with Crystal Stewart Cortens. I got some really great advice on carrying out my stale seedbed technique using tarping. And it got me thinking about forensic entomology. I don't know if you all are big fans of forensic entomology. I think in pop culture, we are taught to think that this is a real job. It is not a job, although it is a real study. There's maybe a handful of people who do it in real life. And if you are a forensic scientist, maybe you have an expertise in forensic entomology. If you're an entomologist, maybe you have an expertise in forensic entomology, but it's not a job. That being said, most of the efforts that people put towards forensic entomology is understanding the succession of insects that will take advantage of a dead carcass. That dead carcass could be a wild animal, it could be a dead human. And so forensic entomologists will use that succession, that pattern of insects that find a dead body, take advantage of it in some weird way, to go backward in time and predict when that person died. I had a fellow graduate student in my grad program who was studying a similar question, but his question was, what does that succession of insects look like in a dead body if the person was drunk, high on cocaine, or high on methamphetamine? Would that succession of insects look differently depending on the rate of development in a body that was rife with drugs? It was an interesting question. And even more so, and I don't know if I'm going to get the details of this story right. It's not really my story to tell. They use pigs as stand-ins for human bodies. This is a detail you might not want to know. There are people who do this work with actual human bodies, but in general, they'll use pigs. So they got permission from the powers that be to acquire the cocaine, to acquire the methamphetamine. They were going to inject these into their study subjects in order to deliver the treatment. They thought they were going to get clever and just do it the old-fashioned way and get the drunk pig drunk by feeding it booze. I think they were giving it screwdrivers. I'm not 100% sure. They had to hire a professional to dispatch these animals. So they had it on the schedule. The guy was going to come and do it properly at the study site. So they said, let's get this pig drunk. We're going to get this pig drunk, get it ready for the treatments to be done and the animals to be dispatched. But unfortunately, the professional animal butcher dispatcher, he had to cancel at the last minute. So they had this drunk pig on their hands. And they said, "Oh well, we'll try again next time." So by the time they rescheduled, that pig remembered the hangover. It remembered and connected the hangover to the drinking. So they fed it those screwdrivers again and it would not drink. The take-home message is that pigs are smarter than college students, that's for sure. But what does this have to do with weeds? And what does this have to do with managing weeds using tarps? Well, I will tell you.
Crystal gave me some great advice to leave those tarps on for at least 4 weeks if I had very hard to manage rhizomatous weeds, which I don't think I have a problem with, and maybe just 2 weeks for the most common weed seeds, but that some species take a little bit longer to germinate. I lifted up the corners of my tarps and I am seeing little thready weed babies. So it is working and I am drunk with power, but you can't really tell who these weeds are, and I don't want to jump the gun and take off that tarp too early before some of those heat-loving species have gotten the chance to, germinate and kill themselves in the darkness of the tarp. I've been doing a little bit of homework to identify the succession of weed species that germinate at different times depending on how much heat they've experienced. And I've been collecting soil temperatures using this meter data logger, so I really could do the same assessment using growing degree days that have been accumulated under the tarp. So we're thinking about the early germinators that would be coming up within 150 growing degree days in base 50. So we're thinking thinking about the weeds that like early season cool conditions, like chickweeds, your henbit, your purple dead nettles, your wild mustards, and other brassica species like shepherd's purse. You know it, you have mixed feelings about it. But I definitely want to wait a little bit longer than that, at least 300 growing degree days, to get the lamb's quarters, maybe the pigweeds, at least some of the grass species. While I think the quality of these meter loggers is very good and it is very easy to communicate with a little robot with an app on my phone, this company really wants you to pay for their remote cloud data service, which I am not willing to do at the moment. I'm having a bit of trouble getting data off of these things the old-fashioned way. I think I need to actually take my computer out to the field and plug it in, which I don't want to do, but they have me over a barrel. Nonetheless, I think I can look at all the weeds that have germinated outside my tarps to indicate whether or not that succession of species should have germinated inside the tarps, and if I am good to proceed and take off the tarp and start planting. So, for example, pigweed cotyledons, or we're talking about the first two leaves that open up out of the seed. Those cotyledons are narrow, elongated, and lance-shaped, kind of like a tiny canoe paddle. Pigweed cotyledons and early stems often have very distinct, bright, pinkish red, magenta hues. So I think that is the later germinating species. And check out this picture. Definitely grass, definitely a monocot, and it is hairy. I think that means it's a crabgrass. Don't quote me on it. But I do feel very confident that those little white thready plants I'm seeing under the tarp include that whole succession of weed species I think are going to germinate this spring. So I think I am ready to take that tarp off and plant my peanuts. So I may not feel comfortable recommending meter services. That's my own personal preference. But something I do highly recommend is that you go right on over to check out this weed management publication on the SARE website. They have so much good stuff over there. But this weed management guide, not only does it have helpful photos that I used here, they also provide some really thoughtful and actionable information about all the different ways to manage weeds, including some elegant case studies from real deal farms. You can read it on the website or download the PDF for free, or even order a hard copy for a rock bottom price. What a country. So thanks to the authors for making this guide. Thanks to SARE for funding their work, and thank you for listening.